Guys, Barbell Apparel just sold out of their all-new Athletic Fit 2.0 jeans, and they did it in 24 hours. But they're about to drop a restock on May 1st. It's hard to explain just how comfortable these jeans are. You may run in them, throw a high kick, you can do whatever else you would do to stay active throughout the entire day. They are so comfortable, you won't want to take them off. Barbell Apparel tests their clothing on elite athletes, Tier 1 military operators, and hundreds of customers just like you. That's why they back up their clothing with a no questions asked 365-day guarantee. The all-new 2.0 jeans represent over 10 years of research to make them better than ever. So if you want to get a pair before they run out or to join the wait list, just text Barbell to number 48281. This is a tweet sent out by Jake Paul. And Jake Paul says, funny how promotions devalue their former fighters. He's talking about Francis Ngannou. He says, Francis, the best heavyweight fighter in the world, should be treated as such. That's interesting. It was very nice. It was very nice of Jake Paul to lend his name and lend his opinion and weigh in on something like that. Let me ask you guys a question. Hold that thought. We'll come back to Jake Paul and Francis. But let me ask you a question as it pertains to Francis. Are you excited for his next fight? If it was in your hometown, would you go? If it's on television, will you watch? If it's on pay-per-view, will you buy it? And I think a lot of you said, yeah, Chael, yeah, I mean, yeah. Heck yeah, I would. I think you said that. But I don't think you've really thought about the question. Is there any other fighter I could have said that and it'd be true that you were going to do those things? Because there's only been two fighters in history that can draw on their own. Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya. Now, I believe that list should be amended to add Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. But I'm quoting the actual list that was published by Sports Illustrated. Okay, great. A bit of an old, antiquated thing that about 15 years ago that came out, which is why I think it needs amended. I'm just sharing with you. When you tell me yeah, if he was in my hometown, I'd go, I'd buy a ticket, I'd go watch him live. When you tell me you're excited for his next fight, when you tell me you'll watch it, when you tell me if it was on pay-per-view that you would buy it, are you telling me the truth? Because again, there's only been two fighters in history where that was true. And there seems to be an interesting thing of, where's he going to land? What promotion's going to pick him up? I'll make a piece when that comes out. I'll have dialogue, at least within my personal lives, my little sphere. We'll talk about that. But that's never been big news. That's never mattered for anybody ever. For anybody in the history of ever, it has never mattered where they're going to fight at. I don't understand. Are we changing the rules? Are we changing the weight classes? Right? I don't understand. What difference would it make? There's been people that have tried to argue from the beginning of time that there shouldn't even be MMA promotions, that it should be cross-branded and should be a federal act under the All-E Act, and it should be like boxing, and anybody can put it on because promotion doesn't matter. I've just heard those things. I don't personally subscribe to that, but I've certainly heard those things. And if that was overwhelmingly so, then it simply would not matter what promotion he was fighting in. Now, what would matter for you to tell me I'm going to watch it, I'm going to buy it, if it was in my home city, I'd go down, check it out in person, would be who the opponent is. Same as everybody who's fighting. Absolutely everybody who's ever fought in the history of time, except for, apparently, Mike Tyson, Oscar De La Hoya, and the amended list to add Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. So when you have Jake Paul, okay, let's circle back. So Jake Paul has come out, he's defended Francis as the best heavyweight in the world, and he should be treated with such respect. That's a very nice and sweet thing. I don't think it's a false thing. Francis was the recognized heavyweight champion, right? There's a lot of guys that are heavyweight champion, but let's be fair. Let's be real fair. Francis was the recognized champion. Of everybody that had the belt, the perception with the belt and title he had and the people he went through to get it, the perception was Francis was the best, and he didn't get beat. Jake Paul makes an interesting point, but let's take a little bit closer look at it. I love everything that Jake Paul's done, but truly the most love that he disrupted our sport, because when he disrupted it, he taught everybody a lesson that's right there. It's everybody knows that, they just wanted to deny it, which is your worth is not the titles you have. It is not your record. It is not what you have done. Your worth is related to what you can bring in. Your ability to draw. Do the people find you interesting or not? Will they stop what they're doing, come together and gather, give up time, part with money? A lot of times that's a neighborhood party. Everybody pitches in $3, right? $3-4. It gets you the fight. It gets you some pizza. I mean, right? Will you do that for a guy? And that's how Jake Paul did so well in boxing. It's how Jake Paul got main events. It's how we got sold out arenas. It's how we got in there with world champions. So I just found it to be interesting that Jake is talking about this should happen for this guy because of his skills and his resumes and his achievements. I found that interesting. I don't disagree with that, but I found it interesting coming from Jake, who disrupted combat with none of those things. And if Jake were to fight on the same card as Francis, nobody would think that Francis would be paid more than Jake. If Jake was to fight on the same card as Francis, I don't think that anybody would believe that Francis would be the main event. I think they believe that it would be Jake. But Jake says the heavyweight champion should be treated a certain level of respect. I think it's interesting. So there's reports coming that Francis is going to the PFL. 98% chances, what I heard. And I'm not ready to tell you that. Again, if he goes to the PFL, it's the same question that anybody else would have. Who is he going to fight? And why is he here? Is he here to do a tournament? Is he here for one-offs? And it becomes a really big problem. What the answer to that question is, it becomes a massive problem. If you want respect, things have to be done your way. You have to show that you're the boss. You have to have, if you've got an authoritative body and you're trying to run a sports franchise, you must show that you adhere to certain codes and policies and rules, and you're not going to bend. And it would be very interesting. It could be very problematic. You bring a guy over and you don't put him into the tournament, you could do some business and you could change your model. But you're not going to bring any more stars. Or you have guys like Anthony Pettis who go, wait a minute, I came over here. I was world champion. I was on the cover of the Wheaties box. I didn't have a choice to do one-offs and super fights and championship fights. I had to go through the tournament. This is the organization that does tournaments. That's what we do here. And possibly the answer to the question is, yeah, Francis is going to go into the tournament. Maybe we're talking about nothing. But it would be interesting, right? It would be interesting. And there are stories through history where promotions got so desperate for a press release, they got so desperate to make a poster, they got so excited, they parted with so much money to get a certain guy, and they even changed the rules of their event. Now, Pride, people really like. Just by example, there's a number of them. I'll just go with Pride because it's a name that stuck around. So many of you love it. Pride and the other organizations that did what I just said, which is bring somebody in and change the rules for that person, all have one thing in common. They're out of business, and they deserve to be. They deserve to be. If you're going to bend your rules because an athlete becomes bigger than the whole thing and he wants a certain thing, he's going to go out there and he's going to wear a gi while nobody else gets, I mean, whatever the weirdness is and the weird stuff that they did, can't respect that. Can't sustain on that. I'm just bringing you that thought. I would imagine if they brought him to PFL, they'd put him in the tournament. That's what I would imagine. If you're going to go into a new business, particularly that of pay-per-view, you just have to have interesting guys for sure. But if you're going to sustain the combat world, they've got to have an interesting opponent. And it's been that way from the beginning of time. I believe the list should be amended. I got to think Conor and I got to think Mayweather would have an argument to be added to that. I could never make the argument to put Francis on there. I just couldn't do it. I put myself on there. I'm not putting somebody down. It's a very rare list. It's a small thing. So why people think they're going to get this big bounce? I mean, I'm just sharing for you. You don't get money for a press release. You don't get money for clicks on the internet. If you got a hot story and you signed a hot commodity just by example, okay, that goes everywhere. Your bank account doesn't change a single dollar. You got to know what to do with that. And the very next thing that you have to do, aside from giving a date, a venue, and an on sale for people, is you have to say who the opponent is. Period. He has to have a meaningful opponent, and I'm not ready to tell you that he's going to the PFL. I know that that's out there. I do know that that's out there. I just think Bellator's still in play. I personally think that. I don't think it for overly good reason, in fairness. I don't have an inside source. I think boxing's real important to Francis. Now, I think these things, and I think I'm right, and I'm pretty passionate that I'm right, but I'm just taking Francis's word for it, right? Like, I give Francis a lot of credit. He's been very open with us. He doesn't owe us information on his business or his private life or his contract or his negotiations, but he's done a really good job of giving it to us. And really polite, and I've always thought that he was sincere. So I just bring up Bellator with their relationship with Showtime, with Espinoza specifically, could accommodate the MMA side and the boxing side. Sure, they could. But PFL could do what's called a carve-out and tell Francis, you are welcome to go and box. I don't want you doing MMA other places. I don't want you doing grappling other places. And whether they said this or not, I'm just sharing what a conversation could be like. But you can go and box other places up to one time per year. That'd be a very reasonable carve-out to put in. And I think that that would satisfy Francis. Just because Bellator has it under one roof, I don't think would exclude PFL, who doesn't have it under one roof, if they allowed him to do that. So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting situation going on. PFL, 98%, from what I'm told, has Francis. We've all been told that Francis has made up his mind, and he has told promotion. I will tell you I believe that. And I will tell you that there will be a level of news when this comes out. It'll die down, but I tell you what, it's a slow MMA, right? It would have been much better to come out last week. It just would. It would have been better to come out last week or to save it for next week. If it comes out this week, you got a pay-per-view, you got a title fight, you got a few things that you're up against. That's fine. That's life, right? If you got good news, it's going to come to the top. But it's going to be hard to stay there because they are for sure going to cover the pay-per-view in the world championship. That's going to take your head. Whenever you come out, that's going to take the headlines. So can you cycle and can you come back through? It'd be better if you did it last week. It'd be better if you do it next week. Let's see how that whole thing plays out. I will share for you, though, I very much appreciated what Chaudhary and One Championship did, just from a tactical standpoint. If you're not getting the press release and you're competing with other people, you also want to stop them from getting this great bounce. So Chaudhary came out, just did a great job, took himself out of it. Chaudhary got headline. He got the same headlines that another organization is going to attempt to get. They're going to pay a whole bunch of money. Chaudhary got the same headlines. It didn't cost him any money. He just did it in reverse. If somebody's going to come and say, we signed him. Chaudhary came out and said, I'm not signing him. He got headlines. I'm just sharing for you. And the reason I share that example for you is if we're down to the PFL and we're down to Bellator, we should know. If Francis has told, if he's made his commitment, if he's verbally told, the other should have told us. They should do what Chaudhary did. They should still get their headlines and not have to write the check. He's not coming with us. We aren't signing him. We have not spoke to him. We hear that he's made his mind up. By process of elimination, we assume that means he's going with these guys because I don't think anybody else is out there. Then get a promoter's license is $100 and signature on the bottom of a form down at your local state office. So, I mean, it's one of those things, right? It would be very strange if we're truly down to Bellator and PFL, if we are truly down to that, and Francis has chosen whoever it's not, should have done the same thing that Chatri did yesterday, which is to come out, ruin their big announcement, ruin it for the other guys, make it for them. Whatever they're getting on together and they're flying, they're going to do an announcement, they're going to try to break into sports, whatever it is they're trying to do, you can ruin it. You would be the only one that knows. If you're down to 2 and it's not you, you're now the only one that knows. You're sitting on a secret of your competitors. Come out and ruin it.